Solar Opposites Season 1 is out now on Hulu. But should you watch it? This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I don't want to ruin anything for you, especially when it's like a comedy show. It's something that you should always go out and witness for yourself. I can only like things how I like them. What I can do is give you an explanation for why I like this show so much. Now, if you had told me like a year ago that Justin Roiland was starting a show that looked very similar to Rick and Morty in a lot of ways, I would have told you to get out my face. I don't want to hear it. Rick and Morty is the greatest show ever and it doesn't need changing. But at this point in time, currently, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I feel like Rick and Morty is in a really difficult place at the moment. It suffers a little bit from the Dan Harmon syndrome. Dan Harmon is a master of creating such a hype that he doesn't know how to nail it once he's in there. He starts off with these strong ideas and he has a good vision for what he wants to create. Season 1 of Rick and Morty is great. Season 2 was still solid, but it felt like they were feeling the pressure from the monster they had created. The beauty of Solar Opposites is Justin Roiland doesn't give a fuck. Like, it's as simple as that. If you've watched Doc and Marty, the original inspiration for Rick and Morty, it's essentially a stupid sketch that ends up with Doc trying to get Marty to lick his balls throughout it. That is Justin Roiland's sense of humor. And for a lot of people, that's what they loved about Rick and Morty. Yes, I do like the whole science fiction and pseudo-intellectual approach in a lot of it. And yes, there are some really smart points in it. But overall, I was happy to have an adult-themed show, like, you know, generally adult themed, that also just went on crazy adventures all the time. We didn't have to care about the canon, it just went on and on. That is what Solar Opposites is doing perfectly. Throughout the entire first season, it's just a mixed match of stories that all work really well per episode. Sure, there's some overarching themes that come into play, but they don't dominate the story in any shape or form. We don't really know these characters too well, so it's nice just watching all of the madness unfold. And while the similarities are there between Rick and Morty, this just feels like it's untouched and uninfluenced. That is the biggest problem with Rick and Morty at the moment, and it's something that Justin Roiland does, like I said, just doesn't give a fuck about. Last week's episode was essentially just them having a go at all of the fans for wanting there to be a canon storyline, which you can't blame them when you introduce some themes that are big open threads and you never come back to them. The last thing I think you should really do is try and beat your fans over the head with your intellect. I've watched South Park for years now, and as much as South Park loves to commentate on the entire world, and sometimes I feel stupid because they do an episode and I'm like, yep, that's me, you got me. They never once really just beat you over the head or held the episodes for ransom just because they didn't like the direction of the things that are going on outside of the show. Like, it's funny to me that you've got Justin Roiland. This was meant to be a should you watch Solar Opposites, but I think if I explain this, you'll understand. It's really funny to me that Justin Roiland's gone off and created a show that's essentially what Rick and Morty should be at this point in time. Simpsons has done it for over 30 years. You don't always need the storyline to continue onwards. You can just take a day out of those people's lives and display it to us. And yes, they've been trying to do that with Rick and Morty, but it just feels like the love isn't there at the moment. But at the same time, you've got Dan Harmon talking about doing community table reads and potentially maybe a movie coming and things like that. And you've got Justin Roiland launching a show that's so similar to Rick and Morty. It kind of shows you that their interests have heavily faded from this thing already. Now, that's my personal opinion. I'm sorry that it's not the greatest way to review a show, but like I said, I don't want to put in spoilers. I think if you've clicked this, you are probably a Rick and Morty fan, or you at least want to know a little bit about Solar Opposites, and I think that is the best way to describe it. This is Rick and Morty Season 1 goodness all over again. It's crazy, it's over the top, it's out of this world. It's Justin Roiland's way of looking at things, and that is what we all enjoyed about the original Rick and Morty series. Like, that I think is something we can agree on. I didn't care personally for the fandom when it got to the point where they're collabing with XYZ popular people or whatever they can do outside of the show. I care for none of that. All I want is, like I've said, South Park, Simpsons, even Family Guy and American Dad. All of these shows, just know you can just keep snapping in at points in lives. It's a sitcom. It doesn't always need to keep going. You don't need to address the fact that people want canon from you. You don't need to constantly make a commentary on your fans. Like, you don't. Like, because ultimately, they're the people that got you to this point in the first place. Whether you like it or not, the only thing you can do is keep your creative control. And I feel like that's what Justin Roiland has done with this show. He said, you know what? I created something and it's not what I like anymore. I'll keep doing it sympathy for the fans and so on and so forth, and I enjoy these characters, but I'm going to go off and make something that I am happy to make, and it's not going to be influenced by the pressure around me. And that is what makes Solar Opposites Season 1 so great to me. I'm aware that saying that Rick and Morty's falling off is probably not a popular opinion, and it's not fully how I feel, because I will still laugh at certain episodes and stuff, but just overall, they keep chopping changing it. How hard is it to deliver a 10 episode season? Like, just start to finish with consistency. When Solar Opposites comes out of nowhere with 8 solid episodes, you have to question what is going wrong there, you know? So yeah, check out Solar Opposites. I loved it. I watched it all in a day. Loved it.